Welcome to the Shepherd Podcast. I'm Pastor Chris Kennedy and delighted to welcome you to our show today. This podcast is a way to acquaint you with people at Shepherd of the Hills that I think you might like to get to know better. We have so many interesting people here, so many faithful servants of the Lord. And if you're a regular at our church, maybe some faces that you've seen before, but you don't know their story as well. Well, today I have a person whose face is seen all the time at our services. He's our head usher, Tex McWright. Tex, thanks so much for being a part of the podcast.
Well, thank you for asking me to be here today. I feel very privileged being considered for this.
We're glad to have you. And as I mentioned, you are definitely a face people see often. You're always at the services, and you really own that role of head usher. Can you tell me what you enjoy about that job?
What I enjoy about being as a head usher is being able to allow people to enjoy their service, and to be able to listen and attend and be able to totally focus on that. Mm-hmm. And I go back to the words that was passed down to me, though, from ushers, from Pastor Dan. Said one of the most important roles as an usher is to attend the service. Mm-hmm. To attend the service. I said, okay, that's number one. Number two is for the ushers to take care of everything that goes on behind the pews, so the people sitting in the pews facing forward can actually focus and receive the word that's being presented. And we'll take care of all the logistics or whatever else going behind there. The reward of that is seeing people smile and nod their head during the service, or to look to see if they feel comfortable in that aspect. So that's what I enjoy about it, just being able to allow people to come in, feel at home, feel comfortable in attending the service, and let them focus on that, on you and the words being presented. And
you guys do a great job of it, and I thank you for your leadership in that role.
Glad to do it. Glad to do it.
Now, during the pandemic, your role has shifted. The role of usher has become even more important because of the very intentional way that we direct people into the church and out of the church. So can you tell me how things have changed during the pandemic for the ushers?
Well, yes. As we went through working on the Welcome Home team, I came up to what I call the 3 A's. And that is that we assessed, we adapted, and then we achieved. So in that, what we want to do, and now that people have been in the service for a while, they know that to sit in the identified pews and the distancing apart. But to begin with, it was having people, escorting them in, ushering them in to the certain pews, and to put into practice the protocols that we have established, so we can have a healthy, safe environment to go ahead and have worship. And so the way we adapted is that, yes, we removed some of the traditional things of the offerings and communions, going forward for communions and things. So that's where we adapted, and now it's just focused on the safeties and protocols that the team has established, and just so that we have a continual having a safe, worry-free environment to worship in.
Mm-hmm. I credit the ushers and the Welcome Home team with putting people at ease. If there's one thing that people will say is that they feel very safe when they come here, because we are very intentional about our protocol, and so a lot of credit goes to the ushers.
Well, we're trying our best, and we're trying to lead by example and not get complacent, but lead by example, again, so that people can see that there is an effort being presented and taken to make it safe for them, where they want to come back. Yeah. And as you've seen, we've had some people who have not attended for months for one reason or the other, but now they've been here and they said, oh, this is okay. I feel comfortable about coming back. And so we're getting those people back in the church to worship. And that's good. That's rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely. Very rewarding.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's learn a little bit more about the man behind the job there, Tex McWright. I told you, first thing I've got to ask you is the name Tex. Where did that come from? Because that's not your real first name.
No, it's not. The the anecdote that goes with that was that sometimes people ask me, "Is Tex really your name?" I said, and I try to look at them with a poker face and say, "No, I was born in Maryland, but I just couldn't handle the idea of being called Mary." And since I lived in Texas, I thought Tex would be better.
That's great.
But in actuality, no, it is a nickname, and some people call it a call sign, a nickname I picked up a number of years ago, many decades ago, as I entered the Air Force and went through officer training school down here at Medina Base. People in my flight said, "We can't remember your name. It sounds weird. You're from Texas. You walk like, talk like, look like, act like. We don't mean you're Tex, you know." And so from that, I thought, okay, it'll just be a temporary thing. Well, people, it just kind of networked out. It went from one place to another. Uh-huh. So pretty soon, that's what people getting to know me by. And as we do a lot of times in the Air Force when we have call signs and nicknames, people don't know an individual's real name or their last name. And that's all they know them by. Right. And so I've had people try to look me up in the directory. They say, we can't find your name. We find this guy named Alfred, but we don't find you. Well, yeah, that's one and the same. So it's a nickname I picked up from in the military. So I use it also as a distinguisher, one from family, those who knew me prior to military to post-military is one. And then two, even with my given name, how it's used, if people call me by my formal first name, they don't know me, and I don't know them. Ah. So it's a screening device.
But family will call you Alfred?
They'll call me by the initials that my dad and granddad did, the initials of A period, Y period, for Alfred Young, A-Y. Uh-huh. So I'm the third. So like I said, it's my dad and granddad. Uh-huh. So it made it interesting sometimes in the household who was talking about.
Yeah, like two different people.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, and as the old in heritage, you know, as people say, when they was talking about actually the senior, they would say, the big one, meaning senior. Well, I was larger than my dad. So that was, you know, and then I know sometimes somebody would call and get talking, and my dad said, "Well, you're talking to him," you know, and stuff. And so we played off of that name back and forth as the situation warranted.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit more about family. Your upbringing grew up in the Austin area?
I was born in Austin, grew up in South Austin. Okay. And I got one sister who's living still in South Austin. And so I went to high school there. Of course, I got the one son, Nicholas, who's going on his fourth year with the Bernie Police Department, and his new bride, Jackie. And then come April, should be a grandparent of some type.
Congratulations.
So we look forward to that. So I was born and raised in Austin. I went for 2 years down at the time, Southwest Texas State University. Okay. And then I transferred up to the University of Texas. I was able to get in there and ended up getting my degree from the University of Texas at Austin.
Ah, so you're a Longhorn.
Yes, right. Very deeply rooted in that. As far as the background, I had the privilege, and I say it's privilege, coming in, and I worked as a athletic trainer in the sports department. So for the years, I was with the football team, and then I worked a year of basketball, baseball, and a year of track as the team trainer for that. So I also had the privilege of being on the back-to-back national championship teams that Texas had in football. So,
really?
Yeah, I was a trainer for that.
Wow.
So, yes.
So do you have a ring? Or?
Yes, I got the ring.
Yeah, very cool.
I got a ring, and I got the Cotton Bowl watches where we played the national championship games in Cotton Bowl. So I got those, and I got my ring.
So you're a two-time national champion?
The team was.
The team. Hey,
I'm always a part of the team.
That's really cool.
Team, yes. So, yeah. And then from there is when after I graduated, this was put things in time perspective, Vietnam was still ongoing. And so I went ahead and joined the Air Force, and to avoid being drafted, to give me some options. And it was I think a very good decision to do.
And how long were you active duty Air Force?
28 and a half years.
28 and a half years. That's a long time.
That's right.
Where were some of the places where you were stationed?
So I had Valdosta, Georgia, Sacramento, California, Minot, North Dakota, Omaha, Nebraska twice, Osan, Korea, Tampa, Florida, Washington, D.C., and then ended career down here in San Antonio.
Okay. What was the most challenging assignment?
The most challenging assignment was working in the Pentagon, working with the Defense Intelligence Agency as a collection manager. And with that, I had hands-on to all the airborne reconnaissance activities being flown around the world. And whenever some type of situation arose, which we started up a military operations, airborne reconnaissance was always called into the picture. So I was called in to see what assets would be available and appropriate, and then go about the tasking and targeting for those assets. So that was very challenging because it was high interest. You never knew when or where something was going to occur, and so then to respond, and the things that we developed went forward to Joint Chiefs of Staff, National Security Council, the State Department, and all for approvals.
Really?
So,
you interacted with those different departments?
Indirectly. I provided information that went forth to them.
Oh, that's high-level stuff. A lot at
is.
stake.
Yeah. So it was challenging because you never knew how long or to what level they needed stuff, and to be able to cover. And I learned from there is not the person who's speaking, but it's the position that's being spoken for.
Okay.
Is where it's power in the position.
Right.
It's not the name of the individual. So.
Sure.
Yeah, but whoever spoke was the one that they referred to as that person said, because they referred, and that was tied to the office.
Tied to the office.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you had to be careful of what you said because it would be traceable back to you as this is what your office stated.
I see. Now it sounds like you could feel a fair amount of pressure with there's some important things going on there.
Right.
Were there ever times when it was very, very stressful in the job?
Yes, it was. Sometimes trying to either deadlines, meeting stuff. We need this thing first thing Monday morning. Thank you very much. It's 3:00 Thursday afternoon.
Okay.
And I got to coordinate with people in a totally different time zone. And coming into weekend, yes. And knowing that some of this stuff was being presented to very senior officers levels, and trying to make the best presentation possible, and trying to anticipate what their questions would be.
Right.
And sometimes they ask some very challenging questions or very challenging requests and try to fulfill those. And so you had to feel comfortable with what you were saying, and then sometimes stand by what you were saying.
Sure.
Because there were some way you could tactfully and politely and politically correctly say, no, we can't do it that way.
Okay.
and stuff. So
yeah.
that was sometimes very challenging event.
You've always come across to me as someone who's seen a lot, done a lot, and you seem to be very cool under pressure. If something goes haywire during a service or something like that, it's okay, we can get it under control.
Yeah, we can recover.
Yeah.
There's always a recovery plan.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as you and I have discussed, a lot of times you or I will see something, but we're the only ones really cognizant of it.
Right.
And it's okay.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. If it doesn't affect everybody else, then it's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good. Okay, so you were in for 28 and a half years, you said.
Right.
May I ask, what was your rank when you retired?
Lieutenant Colonel.
Lieutenant Colonel. So had a fair amount of authority.
Fair amount, yes.
Yeah, used to supervising people.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then retired here in San Antonio.
Correct.
And then what happened after that?
After that, as a lot of us retirees do, not really ready to retire in full. So I went back and became a DOD contractor.
Okay.
I'm still working back in an operations-related field between operations, intelligence, and logistics. My background's been operations. Mm-hmm. So what I'm currently doing now and have done in my contracting time has all been ops missions related, and it's been very, very rewarding. And because it's not the same, but it's a nice feeling. It's kind of because I see things that go into effect, into placed into operations, and coming out of the flying career, flying world, where it's all ops orientated. It's a close correlation,
Now, so from the time you entered the Air Force until now, you've been connected with the military the whole time?
Correct.
All the way through?
Mm-hmm.
We're talking decades of your life involved with the military.
Matter of fact, in a little bit less than a year from now, 2021, about this time, I'll have approximately 50 years in working within the DOD system.
Wow. That's fantastic.
And some people say I'm very not smart by spending so much time, but I've enjoyed it. It's been good to me, and said yes. Yeah, I've enjoyed it.
Well,
otherwise, I wouldn't keep doing it.
Right. Well, thank you for those 50 years of service to our country.
Yeah, it's been good.
Yeah,
it's been good. Seen a lot.
How have you seen things change over those 50 years from when you first became involved working with the Department of Defense until today?
The one, and sometimes I get asked by people currently in the military, well, how did you go about what did you do to get promoted to the various ranks? Mm-hmm. And one thing I tell them, in a way answering your question, the things I did when I was active duty, you can no longer do because you will be kicked out of the service if not charged. So as the society has changed in its outlook and beliefs and practices, so has the military. Okay. And the military has grown not family-based, but definitely family considered. Before it was, saying if we wanted you to have a wife, we would issue you one. Oh. And so, but that's not the case. Now we take into consideration family needs, whether it be medical needs or whatever type of thing.
Right.
We take those into consideration. So I see what's changed is the way we go about things, the person, considering the person, their safety and well-being. There's a whole lot of negative things out there in the news right now, what's been happening, the way we treat our fellow military members, and that's a shame. That's a percentage, smallest percentage, but it occurs in one too many,
Sure.
of some of the negative things that's happened.
Yeah.
So, but to have that awareness and that training and trying to correct those errors that before were just a part of life,
Okay. So I heard you say a couple of things. One is that there are some things that used to happen that have been, there's been a tightening down on those things. They're not tolerated as much. And then the second thing I heard was that there's more consideration for the family now.
Correct.
Than there used to be.
Correct.
Okay.
So that's, like I said, that's one of the things that we look at, and we say service before self, but then also in our, like I said, it is still concerning the family. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I think one of the biggest things is where family has specialized medical needs, to reassign them to a place where that medical care is available to them.
Oh, sure.
And doing that and trying to recognize the impact upon when somebody has to move. They got children in high school, maybe in their junior year or senior year. Try not to move them during that time frame, or minimize it so not to disrupt the family.
Sure.
So that aspect, and some of the assignments are being considered and looking at it. So yeah, things have changed, and it's changed and society has changed too.
Sure. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
So I asked you earlier, what was your most challenging military assignment? What's been your most challenging assignment in your career after active duty?
Is always make sure there's a new contract available to keep me employed.
Okay.
Because as a contractor, we serve at the interest of both the company, contracting company, and the service, the organization. At either one of them, they could terminate us for whatever need. So, happiness is being a contractor, because there's a lot of things that the military and government civilians have to participate in that we don't as contractors. But at the same token, when your contract period comes to the end, it's like, okay, is it going to be re-awarded or recompeted and awarded? Do I need to start updating my resume and start expanding my networking? That's where the times of uncertainty come in and cause a lot of anxieties.
Yeah.
And
have you ever had one of those times when the rug just got yanked out from underneath you as a contractor?
a couple of times.
Yeah.
Yes. One of them, the contract wasn't renewed, and both of them, contract wasn't renewed, and the company did not have a corresponding position for me to go to.
Okay.
So I got one of them got furloughed, and one of them they placed me in an early retirement.
Oh, okay.
So.
And how do you deal with those kind of surprises? How do you process that?
Well, you do a lot of stress release activities to start with. Then you start in your networking and start going in and start doing the job search.
Right.
But hopefully your contacts and networks and your name and credibility will prevail, and somebody will reach out and call you and say, hey, are you available?
Yeah.
And you go, oh, just by chance I am.
Sounds like it's worked out for about 50 years.
It's worked out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And stuff. So, yes, it's been the furloughed, and like I said, sitting there going like, okay, what next? And looking at getting very proficient at rearranging resumes and filling out job applications and submitting them.
Now, the current work that you're doing, does that have a timetable to it where the contract's going to run out at a certain time?
We're good right now to the end of 2022, and at that time we'll recompete, and we'll see how it goes. But I can say I'm not worried about it. I'll do my share, but I really don't plan on being there in 2022.
Is that right?
Right. 2021, I said, this time next year, I hope to be, quote, at least half semi-retired.
Okay.
Not full-time, at least part-time work.
Yeah. Oh, great. That'll be a turning of the page.
Yeah, another chapter.
Another chapter.
Another chapter.
Yeah.
Right.
So you had a lot of leadership experience with the military and as a contractor. And then you've also served here, head usher, and on our board of directors as well.
Right.
And I'm wondering how serving in that kind of a position, serving on a board of a church, number one, how you were able to bring some of your experiences into that role. And also, what did you learn from serving on our church board of directors that maybe you had not learned out there in the other things that you've done?
What I was able to capitalize on was, as you mentioned earlier, some of the management aspects, looking at a situation and trying to look at it from different angles and approaches and considerations to try to dissect it to see what it's really about, and sometimes what is what appears to be very easy, simple, but is there some long tentacles behind that have things that need to be considered. In other words, like what's the feed and care and life span of something, and how much care and feeding does it take to keep it operating and maintaining. The initial cost might be very low, but the upkeep and maintenance of it has to be considered and rolled into the cost and into the budget. So it's kind of just that, yeah, it looks rosy now, but let's look at it the long term, what all is involved with that.
Okay.
So that's helpful. As far as what I learned from working on the board was the business aspect of a church. And a lot of people don't realize that there is a business approach and function of a church. Yes, we come up with, we coordinate and recommend the ministry plan, the expenditure of funds for different areas, but also if we just look around for capital improvements that are ongoing, like we just have done here in the last couple of months, the board has to approve the money to come from someplace. And do we have that? Is there an impact? Yes, we have an emergency fund, but one thing I stated early on, the emergency fund is not for day-to-day operations. It's there for an emergency. Right. So we need to have an operations and maintenance fund that we can draw from. Yeah. So the big thing I learned was all the activities, again, kind of behind the scene that go into the operational portion of church. Yes, kind of the three parts. We got the Board of Education, Board of Elders, Deacons. You got your Board of Education, and then of course we'll have the pastoral staff too. All those got to work together, and but for us, it's for the board of directors is just like I said, that operations going through. I'm looking at the window here at our construction site. Yeah. The shakiness of signing the contract for the loan for that.
Oh yeah, your name was one of the names on the loan.
That's right. I'm going like, yep, okay,
yeah,
and
right.
Thanks. But just to identify that and say yes, it's a good idea, good plan, and feel comfortable in going forth with that. So
yeah,
I had no idea all the areas that the board of directors looked at prior to getting onto the board, and it took about a year to really get ingrained in figuring some of those things out.
Yeah, I've heard other people say that too who have served on a board saying, wow, I didn't realize what all was involved in that, how complex things are. And we're very thankful to have people with business experience who can come and help. Myself, I didn't have any business classes. My classes were ministry classes, and so I learn a lot from people such as yourself. One of the big projects that you took on was to review our Constitution and bylaws, and that was a big project. And, someone thinks, oh, boy, that sounds very tedious, sounds pretty boring. Why did you agree to take on that project?
Well, it was something that needed to be done. When I looked at what was then the current one, the date of it, then when I started going through it, trying to find the applicable phrase, sentence, or whatever, it was very difficult. And I found that you'd have to look at 3 or 4 places. So it just frustrated me. Our approach, our management, some of our management practices had changed. And so it needed to be updated. So I took what was the old one and basically separated it almost sentence by sentence and said, okay, this one really applies to here, to here. I don't care it doesn't matter which area, but some things were scattered. Even for you as pastoral things, it was scattered in so many different areas. Right. I said, we need to have it functionally grouped so that we can look in there and have an easy reference. So that's what I took it on. I did not add that much. I just did updating and phraseology and the way it was organized and placed it in that aspect, both for the Constitution bylaws. So you could quickly find the subject area and look for the line and not have to read, it's the 5th sentence in this, 3/4 of a page paragraph, type of thing. So that's the reason why I took that on. And of course, a number of people provided very significant reviews and inputs to that. So, yeah.
We appreciate it. It's something that needed to be done. Like you said, it had been about 13 years from the last time. So you have to make those updates. Yeah,
and I was very pleased that it went through the approval process without being sent back for revisions or considerations.
Right. Yes. Yeah. No, it all turned out very well.
Yes.
It did. And then we moved forward after that.
You're right.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, just getting off the professional and the business and even the serving at church, what do you do for fun? How does Tex McWright unwind?
A lot of times, my part of my daily routine is when I get home in the evening, feed the 3 dogs and get them fed up. I eat, and then they have their internal clocks. It's been 30, 45 minutes, so it's time for you to take us out. So I take them out for a walk. That's part of my daily exercise activities. So they're a big part of my life. And then the other thing is when I get the opportunities to go out, be outdoors. Primarily, I'd go out hunting. It's a big release for me.
Yeah.
And then, other than that, it's just doing the projects around the house. I'm doing a lot of, I won't say remodeling, but just changing the house around some.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating at times, but yet I can see things changing. So that's good.
And that'll be exciting next year when you get to add the role of grandpa to those activities.
One of the bedrooms, I'm already beginning to convert into the, quote, additional nursery.
Excellent. That's such an exciting thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So looking forward to that. Looking forward to it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Looking back on some of the things we've talked about, I'd love to get your perspective on how has your faith helped you throughout the course of your life? It's
been very interesting, and I've kind of reflected back on that. I grew up in the Missouri Lutheran Church. Okay, baptized, confirmed, and stuff. Grew up and was an usher during my earlier years, as my dad was too, and so I did that. And then I definitely say that for some periods of time in the military, I kind of drifted away from the church. Not that I wasn't a non-believer, I didn't make the effort to go to church. Sure. Okay, and so still had faith, but it just not making the effort to go attend service, other than like a lot of people do, the Easter and Christmas, time frame. But then once it got, I really think that once Nick came along, get him baptized and get him in school, and then when we moved down to San Antonio, Shepherd Hills became much more comfortable here and felt at home here. Okay. So that really brought me back into the faith, to enjoy the services, the camaraderie, the friendship that was established here. So that's really brought me back more into the faith. Okay. And as time has grown, some people say, as you get older, you feel like more the need, But no, it was just, again, feeling more and more comfortable. And I was seeing people who had challenges in their life and bring them back in once they, quote, found God, found Jesus, how their life turned around. Well, some of those were kind of examples for me. So there is a good to that, and so that's what is doing it. I enjoy being here. I enjoy serving. Like I said, I feel very comfortable here, and it's one of the pillars in my life that go through. So yes, it's one of my main pillars.
Well, you're one of the pillars of this place. You are such an integral part of what we do, and I thank you for your wonderful service to our congregation. Again, thank you for your service to our nation for so many years. You truly have a servant's heart.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the recognition very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, I enjoy it. If I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah. And thank you so much for your time today with our podcast interview. It's really been a joy getting to learn more about your background, including where the name Tex came from, and to learn about your role on the UT teams and a number of other things we talked about. So thank you so much, Tex, for taking this time to share with our audience a little more about you.
Well, thank you for asking me to be here today. I enjoyed it very much.
Yes. Thank you so much for watching and listening. We appreciate that you've given us some time today. I know that you enjoyed learning more about Tex, and so if you come to a service, chances are you will probably see Tex at some point, and so now you can know a little bit more about who he is. Well, look forward to seeing you next time on the Shepherd Podcast. Until then, the Lord's blessings to you. May he keep you safe and healthy, and the peace of the Lord be with you today.